Hi, my name is Jackie Gabbert, and I am an agriculture teacher at Marysville High School USD 364. After reading the chapter out of school law, I chose to do my presentation over cell phones at school. The rules that we already have in place at Marysville are, according to our student handbook, students are expected to have their cell phones turned off and out of sight during the school day, excluding lunch. However, they can use their cell phones before school, after school, and during lunch in the cafeteria. And then there are consequences assigned for a student that has their cell phone out, or if their cell phone rings or buzzes during the school day. These consequences are: the first consequence is the cell phone will be confiscated and turned into the office. At the end of the day, the student can pick up their cell phone. The second offense, the cell phone will be confiscated, turned into the office, and the parent or guardian must be called to school to pick up the cell phone. On the third offense, the student cell phone will be turned into the office. The guardian will be required to pick up the cell phone, and then the student will not be allowed to have a cell phone at school for 5 days. When they get to school every morning, they have to check in their cell phone to the office. Our office ladies make sure that they write down what make and model the cell phone is, because we have had students try to bring in an old dummy one, etc. The fourth consequence is similar to the third, as they will have to check in their cell phone, but this time for 10 days. And then for the fifth offense, students will be placed on a behavioral improvement plan. However, this is what it looks like in reality. Students, as you can see in the photo, students are hiding their cell phones under their desks and texting or whatever, or in their backpacks, in their lockers. They ask to be excused to the bathroom so that they can text in there. It turns into teachers are choosing where to pick their battles. So is it important enough to pull the cell phone from the student and turn it into the office, or is it pretty minor and I don't want to deal with that today, I have too many other things going on that I'm not dealing with this in my classroom? As we've seen, there is a school-wide policy, but it is treated differently depending on the teacher and depending on the classroom. There are some definite pros of allowing cell phones in classroom. A few of them are technology integration. We're always being told that it's so important to teach our students how to use technology. However, right now in Marysville, we aren't doing this. Almost all of my students have this technology available to them, but we're not teaching them how to use it or how to use it in an educational setting to help them. We're also just refusing to teach students how to use technology responsibly. So learning how to self-discipline themselves to use it for technology and helping them learn how that looks in a classroom, we're just refusing to teach that. And then a few 21st century skills that could be tied to using cell phones in classroom would be IT literacy, media and internet literacy, and then self-discipline and self-direction. All of those skills will be used by students after high school, and it makes me wonder, why aren't we teaching this to our students now if it's going to be so important to them after high school? But along with that, there of course are cons. And the biggest one is using for non-educational purposes. So a student's supposed to be using one for polleverywhere.com, but instead they're texting a friend, whatever it is. It's also a possible bullying or harassment avenue. And then on the con side also could be a loss of social skills, including teamworking skills, soft skills, oral communication skills. And all of these would be related to how the teacher chose to integrate the technology, as well as how the students chose to use it for their assignment. Here are some very specific or more specific examples of using how cell phones could be properly used for an educational task in a classroom. As I've already mentioned, polleverywhere.com is really common. You could use it as a brainstorming or a review game with your students, and basically it is just what it sounds like. You give them a question and then you poll them and they answer it, and the graph shows up on the board so that they can see where they're at. You could have them summarize their learning on Twitter, Instagram products that they've created. Those do bring up privacy issues since they would be underage, so that would have to be addressed with your legality department as well as with parents. They could create and post videos that could be done in a private classroom page and not necessarily just to YouTube. They would have access to Google Classroom, Google Calendar all on their phone. We are just moving over to be a Google school, so I could see the definite possibilities with this. They could have access to Edmodo, which would be they could watch videos that I had taped for them and put on there. They would have access to their assignments anytime, anywhere, and that could be a definite positive thing for them. And then, of course, apps that relate directly to the content area. For me, this could be anything from animal science and going through the digestive system of animals, or a greenhouse app manager for managing the greenhouse. So it could be really, really broad and varied depending on what content area you are teaching and want to use. And then even really basic things like a calculator, dictionary, thesaurus. I have students come up when we're working on record books. Can I use the calculator on my phone? And so just having this available and letting them use that could be a really good educational use. What does the law say? According to our school law book, schools are charged to provide safe education to all students. And to have a ban on cell phones, schools must prove evidence of disruption. So they must prove how the cell phone is actually disrupting class before they can prohibit it. Prohibiting devices should not offend personal rights of students. So definitely being careful not to overstep the First Amendment. And then exceptions may be made on a case-by-case situation. And it talked a lot about if there were medical issues, if a student had medical issues, having the availability to be able to call a parent at any time if they had an emergency. And you could see the really definite positive things that they could use this for if they had an allergic reaction, or if there was an emergency in the school, that as long as students could call out, they would be able to contact parents. A few considerations if we were to create a new cell phone usage policy at our school. The focus should always be on appropriate use and using it for educational purposes. The teacher would have to be very proactive so that students weren't using it inappropriately in their class, and along with that, they would have to be the ones that are monitoring proper use. There would have to be consequences for improper use. A couple of concerns might be if you were using things that needed internet capabilities, hooking into the school internet, as well as overstepping data usages that students have. So we would have to check that out definitely. And then the school policy should definitely be read over by a lawyer before going into effect. Our school policy should be changed. This isn't my opinion. Teachers in classrooms will not be required to use cell phones, but it will be accepted for educational uses. With this, we would be teaching students how to use devices properly. Instances of bullying, harassment, and cheating will not be tolerated. And through all of this, we would be teaching 21st century skills to our students that will help them be successful after high school. We saw what it looked like currently in Marysville. This is what the possibilities could be. Students using it for proper uses, not necessarily hiding it, but working together to solve problems, and using their phone as a resource, not necessarily as the sole purpose or sole use of their education process. Here are a few resources that I used. Thank you for listening to this presentation.